Hey, this is Judah Mantel from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm actually going to go through the start to finish process from previs to final compositing of a SceneForge scene using both the Storyboard and Studio 3D application. This is the first in hopefully multiple little vignettes that I'm going to be creating and going over the process in these videos. So I'll jump right in now. The first step is, of course, hand-drawn storyboarding. Now, you may want to skip this depending on what kind of scene you have in mind. Maybe it makes more sense to jump immediately to the 3D. But in my case, I have this little sketch planned out, and I am not a good hand-drawn artist by any means, but I think this conveys the idea pretty well. You can see we have a city skyline over a balcony, and then we turn the camera, we see with the arrow indicator, to pan over to see a character, in this case it'd be a real live action actor on a green screen, standing next to a robot, and then they're talking. It cuts to a shot of them from head on, and then a hover car flies in, kind of like a Cyberpunk scene, and that's when it ends. It's going to be a quick shot that I think will be pretty interesting. So now let's talk about how we actually get this 2D storyboard and translate it to a 3D scene. Now, asset collection is incredibly important, actually getting the 3D models that you want to use. So I have a couple of them queued up. Alright, so the first is this really great drone photo scan of Osaka in Japan. This is from this user here. Of course, all the credits for these models will be in the description of this video. And it's a huge model that actually has a pretty reasonable poly count, under 1 million, which is pretty good for something like this. And this is going to be our backdrop, our skyline, because we can scale this up to really show the scale of the city in the background. Next, we need our character, our secondary character, the robot. I have this guy, which is not animated, but I feel like we can give him some character with some light animation as well. Then for the rest of the actual scene, I found this cyberpunk floor. We also have this damaged stone railing. I have just this dumpster that I found for the background, just to add some more flavor to the scene. And finally, we have the hover car. I picked this one because it's nice and reflective, which I think would look good in the scene. And so for now, these are the models we're going to use in combination with the floor plan editor and some of the included SceneForge lights and primitives and things like that. So now I'm going to open up SceneForge and we'll jump into that. Alright, so here we have an empty scene. I'm going to start by bringing in some primitives to just block out the scene. And of course, we have a camera over here. And the actual process of the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by translating our storyboard here, our hand-drawn storyboard, to a 3D storyboard based on rough blockouts of the scene. Then from there, we're going to take this into a little more detailed pass of the scene. We're basically replacing the stand-in models that are included with the actual models that we are using for our scene, and then I'm going to pair that with some actual live compositing, and hopefully get a final scene that way. Additionally, I'll probably record using the handheld camera app to get more realistic motion, and that's what you'll see in the final shot. So, for now, I'm going to switch to a time-lapse, and then I'll jump back in with any little bits of commentary that I think are necessary. So now I'm going to start by blocking up the scene now that I have some models that are imported. I'm going to bring in a cube to start. This is just going to be essentially act as our balcony that we're working off of. I'm just going to stretch this up. So you can see I'm setting up the camera where I can start looking over into the distance, then pan over to my character over here, just like the actual storyboard indicates. So let's say we have our beginning shot of the balcony. I'll add the railings, and we have our night cityscape. Of course, I'll change the lighting down the road, but just to get a three-dimensional version of this going, I'm going to take a snapshot here. Then I'm going to pan the camera over to our characters. In this case, it's going to be a stand-in and then this sphere to represent the actual robot. So already we have these shots here that we can use to compile a really rough 3D version of this timeline here. So I'm going to set that up just to get a sense of the way this will look in a more traditional storyboard format. So first we have our skyline, then we pan to our characters here. And because this is a shot that is meant to be continued between these two frames, we can indicate that by enabling the continued icon. So this is shot 1A, and this is shot 1A-B. Now in this case, I'm not a huge fan of this naming convention, so I'm going to really quickly reconfigure that to be shot 1A, and the continue is going to be just continued, to be a little more straightforward. Then we turn around to be a shot of them talking, and then finally the hover car comes in. So I'm going to make sure that's continued like that. And so now once we have this exported, you can see our scene here with all our description, our dialogue. And so this is great because it's a pretty standard format that's very easy to read. You can see we have the arrows indicating that it is a continued shot as these things go through. And yeah, so this is something that can be handed off to another person on the team to replicate this in real life. It's super easy and very convenient. But in this case, because we're going to be working with a completely CG scene running in real time, we don't really need to hand this off to someone else, because we can then take this actual scene here and just add more realism in the models we're using to replace it with the actual final shot. So I'm going to continue by doing that now. Alright, so here I am quickly finishing up the final shot, or the secondary shot of the sequence. It's just the alternate side of the camera moving. And you'll see that I did opt to switch for a lighter time of day. I think that just looked overall better with the way the composited footage matched. It just obviously was filmed in lighter setting, so it matched a lot better. It is still rough around the edges, quite literally, in terms of the compositing, simply because the entire thing was done in under an hour, and you can see the time-lapse kind of reflect that. Both as the software evolves, as well as my own creativity, there's going to be a lot of really great stuff coming from this channel in the future, and I can't wait to share it with you. So, without further ado, this is the final product.